Today I went ahead and put $10,000 into a very speculative, very dangerous stock here today. This stock is less than 70 cents a share. We're going to get into why I went ahead and did this. I haven't bought this stock in quite some time in terms of putting fresh money into it. And a lot of people have asked me over the past, I would say year and a half or so, like, why aren't you buying this stock? Those sorts of things. I think I've, been patient enough with this one. I think it's the perfect opportune time to buy this stock. So we're going to speak about why I believe this stock and the business model have both bottomed. That's where we're going to get very interesting. The stock and the business model have bottomed. And we're going to talk about how much upside I see here. Is this like a 3x opportunity, 5x, 10x? Because for me to buy a very speculative stock like this here today that we're going to speak about, it's going to have some insane upside on the other side. Otherwise, it's not worth my time to even put money into it, right? Now, the first thing you got to understand is I have a lot of substantial money in great companies that are household names that are just companies that execute, right? Meta, $882,000, right? Up $681,000 on that one. Amazon up $82,000 there, $195,000 position. Tesla's a $294,000 position, up $247,000. Palantir's $127,000 position, up $78,000. PayPal up $11,000, $205,000 position. Elf, $165,000 position, up $158,000. The reason all that's important is you got to understand where I'm at financially. I also have millions of dollars in real estate. So a number like this is not like, risking it all. Like, oh my gosh, like here's a way I view spec stocks, which is what this stock is. Spec stocks, you never want to risk more than you can afford to lose in one of these sorts of stocks. They do have those ridiculous potential return profiles, right? But in these sorts of companies, they're very speculative. They could go wrong, things could happen and things like that, right? And it's much better in one of these stocks to be in a situation where you're like, oh man, I wish I bought more of this stock. Like, why did I put in more money? Oh, 10x my money. I should have put way more, right? It's way better to feel like that than feel like, I feel horrible. Why did I put this much money in the stock? Like I lost all my money. How do I file bankruptcy? Way better to feel this sort of moment, right? And so that's why I bought $10,000 worth of stock today instead of $100,000 or $1 million worth of stock here today, folks, okay? All right, all I need from you guys for this in-depth video here today is make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Check it out down there. Are you subscribed? If you are, great. If you're not subscribed and you love stock market videos, stocks I'm buying, things like that, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're subscribed to the channel. Also, 6 days away from our massive Patreon sale. We have over 1,000 members in the Patreon, paying members. If you're not in there, why you're not in there, okay? We got the deal of the century coming. Pin comment to enter in your info and we'll send over the deal when it drops. It's a 24-hour sale only. Probably won't do another sale in the Patreon till, I don't know, maybe Black Friday. That's the last time we did a sale in the Patreon. So this is your big opportunity. Get in there, get my #1 course ever, see the stocks I'm buying and selling each week, plus get access to that Discord chat in there, okay? That's a no-brainer. You got to be part of that. Pin comment down there, enter in your info now, get it done with, okay? And then get ready to take advantage of that sale. So what stock did I go ahead and spend $10,000 on here today? And then we'll talk about why I think the stock has bottomed and the business has bottomed and how much upside I see here, okay? It is The Planet, we'll just call it that, okay? The Planet, yes, went ahead and bought a lot of shares around 65 cents here today, okay? Now, The Planet has had an extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. It's one of the most interesting stocks the past 5 years in the stock market because this company, a lot of people thought they were going to go bankrupt in March of 2020. And the reason being is the whole world shut down. Vegas completely shut down in March of 2020, right? And they had this superstore. And a lot of people thought, and they had a very low cash balance back then in those days. So the stock, I think it actually bottomed. Here it says, March 1st, it was $1, but I think it went way below $1 in the bottoms of the crash of March of 2020, right? Then the business came back like insane. And the growth rates the company put up were absolutely ridiculous. I've never seen anything like that. It was one of the most extraordinary turnarounds in history. And then the stock went from actually under $1 to $7 a share, and that happened in a 14-month span. 14 months. Then the big crash happened after that, right? We know inflation got out of control. We know the Fed had to start coming in and obviously, raising interest rates, which hurt all speculative assets and small cap type stocks. Then on top of that, Planet's business model started getting hurt substantially. Instead of growing the business, revenues actually went in decline, and it turned into a mess quickly. And the stock went from $7 to $1 in about 14 months. So what a story. And now here recently, if we just look at like the past 11 months, the stock's gone a whole lot of nowhere for the past 11 months. This takes it back to kind of like May of last year, right? And here we are, April of 2024. So the past 11 months, the stock's done a whole lot of nothing. It's gone up, it's gone down, kind of forming out a bottom here, right? Now, why do I believe the stock and the business have bottomed? And why am I buying the stock? And then we'll talk about upside here, okay? Well, take a look at this. Something very interesting is going on with the financial statements of the company. Now, in the most recent quarter, the revenues went down 7.5%. A lot of that, in my opinion, is due to pricing. This past quarter in terms of the December quarter, and then into this first quarter, I think we're seeing a bottom in pricing, and I think pricing is going to move up from here. Now, the fascinating thing, the very important thing is, this is one of the craziest situations you'll ever see with a company's financial statements. Despite the revenue being down last quarter, the gross profit was up for the company on a year-over-year basis. So revenue down 7.5%, gross profit up 2.8%. That's crazy. Gross profit percent grew. That almost never happens where you see a revenue down like that and then gross profit up. That's wild. Okay, very, very wild. That shows me that likely the pricing for the business has bottomed now at this point in time. And also revenue, in terms of revenue, I'm not scared about revenue growth at all because the company's going to post insane revenue growth, in my opinion, this year and for several years to go in the future. So that whole 7.5% down, that's a thing of the past, okay? That's old news now at this point in time, no different than in 2022, what was going on in the business in 2021 was old news. This, what you're seeing, what would happen in 2023, that's old news. Everything's about to change massively for this company. Net loss, they brought that down 71% year over year. Adjusted EBITDA, they had actually busted out a positive adjusted EBITDA, which was good. And adjusted EBITDA margin, positive versus negative for the same quarter last year. Very, very good to see that. Now, this company holds a ridiculous amount of assets now at this point in time. The crown jewel of the company is the Vegas Superstore, which is right off the Las Vegas Strip. It's kind of right behind the Trump building and then obviously Fashion Show Mall. Okay, very close to the Wynn, Encore, Palazzo, Venetian, Resorts World. Now, this is a crown jewel of the company. The store's a superstore. It is absolutely epic. It does big business. It's the crown jewel of the company. If you are staying on the strip and you want to engage in the Jack Jackson product and you want to go to the coolest place, you're going to go to the Planet. It is, it's number one. Like that's I don't know what other way to put it. It's the granddaddy of them all, right? Now, they also just opened up a consumption lounge literally a few days ago. And I think this is a huge game changer for the company. And the reason being is now people can actually enjoy the product inside the store rather than a situation where you have to buy the product and then leave right away, right? Now you can actually consume the product there. Now, I'm hoping over time they integrate it. From what I've heard so far, they don't have it integrated where you can also get food inside the lounge and alcohol as well. I'm thinking over time, they'll be able to put it all together because they sell food on the premises and then they also sell alcohol on the premises. So I'm like, why can't you get everything together in kind of one big here? Because think about it, you're with a group of friends. Some people might want some Jack Jackson. Some people might want a beer or a mixed drink or whatever. Some people might be hungry and want to eat. I'm like, let's get it all together. So I think Planet will figure out that whole game. But the moral of the story is the fact that you can now use the product on the premises is, in my opinion, very, very big for the company, and that's gonna greatly raise the amount of time spent on property, which in my opinion is actually a good thing, and it's going to get more and more people to want to go there as a destination rather than just a quick in and out, let me get the product and then get out of here, okay? Now, in terms of Superstore, it gets ridiculously high reviews, 8.5 thousand reviews, 4.5 stars. Like I said, it's the granddaddy of them all on the Vegas Strip. Now, on top of that, this is very important, they own a bunch of their own brands, so they're very vertically integrated. Now, these brands that they own, these are very successful brands. You're going to see them if you ever go to the Planet store in Las Vegas. You're going to see all these brands, in the showcases. They kind of give these brands like prominence, right? And think about it. If they sell these brands, which a lot of them, these products actually make right there at the store. Some of them they don't. But if they sell these products, guess what? The margins are likely way better than if they sell another company's products, right? Because they can only make a small amount of margin. Let's say they buy chocolate bar. And say they buy a chocolate bar from XYZ company, right? Okay, so they have to pay that company then $10 for the bar, and then they can mark it up to $15, right, to sell to the customer. Versus, they don't have to worry about that middleman when you have your own brands, and they have a ton of their own brands. And these brands, they not only sell inside their store, but they go ahead and they sell a lot of these brands and a lot of these products to other stores that are in Las Vegas as well. Now, on top of that, they have their beautiful, it is gorgeous store, not as good as the Vegas store, but it's still gorgeous store in Orange County. Now, this store opened many years ago, and it's a gorgeous store, and it's overall been seen as a disappointment. Okay, I'll put it like that. It was seen as a disappointment. And when I say disappointment, it's not really from the customer angle. The customers love this place. It gets a 4.6 stars out of 748 reviews, right? People love this place. But it's never been a moneymaker for the company. And so therefore, people have kind of chalked it up as a disappointment for the planet overall, right? Now, what's interesting is in the latest conference call, they were talking about this opportunity is almost to break even now, okay? Now, this matters because the store is about to hit 3 years old, right? It's about to hit 3 years old. So the moral of the story is when I worked at Quick Trip, back in the day, right? There was always a saying at Quick Trip. When we went to a new state, we lost money for 3 years, and then starting in year 4 and beyond, we started to actually make money. And that was a Quick Trip, right? Which is a gas station, convenience store, those sorts of things. So even in a business like that. So the moral of the story is usually when you go to a new state, you're not going to start making money right off the bat. It usually takes you a while to ramp up, get your brand name out there, get a local clientele base that comes in each and every day, right? Or each and every week. If you're in that sort of business, it's not like you just open a store and you're already making all this money. It's not usually how it works, right? And so we're at a very important inflection point where this Orange County superstore could go from, this is a huge disappointment, this is such a failure for our company, to actually, in the next year or two, being seen as, wow, they've actually done this right. They've actually are starting to make money here. This is actually being a help to the company rather than a drag on the company. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but this is the magic kind of next year for the company, and I wouldn't be surprised if this baby turns into a huge positive for the company overall. Now, they also did a big acquisition in California as well for Green Wave. It was a Next Green Wave, which was a MJ company, right? Jack Jackson company. They did this acquisition March of 2022. And that's when the deal fully went through. And so they probably did it at the wrong time. They could have got it for probably half price if they just waited a little longer to do this. But whatever, they did the deal. It helps the company vertically integrate, and it helps their wholesale business in a substantial way in Southern California. And that's taken a while to kind of get that in the right place. Now, on top of that, they also just opened a store in December. So we haven't even really got to see this store's numbers yet. We're going to really see that starting in 2024. They opened a store in Illinois. And we'll see how it does. They obviously went with a much more modest type store here, right? This is a long way from a, Vegas superstore, but it makes sense. Like, you're not going to, in this area, you're not going to build a Vegas superstore. That just doesn't make sense, right? There's only a few markets you could build a superstore. And I would say that Illinois store shouldn't be a superstore. So we'll see how that does over time. Then they own a small store called Medizin here in Las Vegas as well. This was actually their original store before they had the superstore, right? Now, on top of that, their Florida opportunity is crazy. So here we go. A leading vertically integrated multi-state Jack Jackson company announced it entered into, and this was just as of January of this year, stock purchase agreement dated January 22nd, 2024, to sell all of the issued and outstanding shares of common stock of Planet 13 Florida, which owns a medical Jack Jackson Treatment Center license issued by the Florida Department of Health to this particular buyer, right? The sale of that license is closing on the condition to the company's previously announced proposition or proposed acquisition of VitaCann, which operates 26 dispensaries in Florida. Quote, we're pleased to be executing on the roadmap we laid out in Florida expansion. The sale of this surplus license was a primary step required for us to move forward with our acquisition of VitaCann and their expansive retail network and cultivation assets, Planet CEO Bob said. The solid all-cash return from the sale will help facilitate closing and integrating of VitaCann. Pursuant of the purchase agreement, the company will sell all its shares for a cash payment of $9 million due to closing. The proposed transaction is expected to close in the first quarter of 2024, subject to customary closing conditions, including the receipt of regulatory approvals and the simultaneous closing of the acquisition of VitaCan. Okay. Now, in regards to this, right, they also raised about $11 million here recently, kind of a cash infusion of the company. And this Florida opportunity it has the potential to be bigger than everything in the company that I showed you before, right? We talked about Vegas, the superstore, the small store. We talked about Illinois. We talked about the Orange County wholesale business as well as the superstore there. And at the end of the day, the Florida opportunity could be bigger than everything combined in the entire company, okay? Just Florida. So we're going to see how this shakes out over this next 12 to 24 months, but it's very important you understand this reminds me a little similar of when Las Vegas Sands and Wynn back in the day were opening properties in Macau. And people didn't really understand quite how big of an opportunity it was. And then they kind of saw, oh my gosh, like this is insane. And we could see a similar phenomenon here in Florida. We got to see the numbers over this next 12 to 24 months, but there could be something like that going on. Now, recently on this random whatever I dug up here that happened a few months ago, this gentleman interviewed Larry Scheffler, one of the co-CEOs of the Planet, and he asked, why enter Florida this way, right? Now, why not enter just with the Planet building stores or something like that? And he says, well, the whole thing, we can speed up getting into Florida so much faster. Now we can keep $25 million in the bank since we bought VitaCan for stock only. We've looked at other companies for at least 3 or 4 years, and there's so many flakes out there, which is true. In this space, there's so many flakes. We just thought it was a great opportunity for us. It came around only once, and we grabbed it. We're very selective, and that's why we're happy with this. We treat the money as if it's ours. What if our money was on the line? If the answer is no, then we don't do it. As with public money either, and I appreciate that as a shareholder, right? And that's maybe why we're sitting on many millions of dollars in the bank, zero debt, and all taxes paid for, which is just kind of a flex of the Planet's financial position at this particular time, right? Now, they also have a huge situation. The Planet had so much stuff thrown at them in the last few years, it was insane, okay? Turning to the ongoing legal proceedings and cash position. This is insane. This was, I believe, Bob talking, if I recall, on the conference call. I'm limited at what I can say as much as the company is subject to ongoing legal action. Quick summary, however, the SEC registered investment advisor that we employed to handle treasury services for the Planet embezzled money from the company's accounts. So to date, they recovered $3.4 million of that and expect to recover another $2 million in short order, they said. They're also doing a lawsuit against the whatever company and their founder and the wife and all those sorts of things. This Nash, okay? This is a crazy situation. A SEC registered investment advisor embezzled the money. Like, that's insane to think, right? And so it just goes to show, like, how much stuff could have gone wrong. It wasn't like they just gave this money to some random whoever and was like, here you go. This is an SEC registered investment advisor that did this, right? So the good news is they got some portion of the cash back. Will they see the rest of it? I don't know. Hopefully they do, but don't get your hopes up. I basically, in my mind, I've written off the rest of that money. The rest of the money, I've written it off in my head. They're not getting it back, okay? But there's potential upside there. We'll see how all that shakes out. As I mentioned in my comments, like in the post of closing of VitaCan, after spending the $4 million, the cash component on that acquisition, after the raise, we'll have $33 million in cash, which we think is more than enough to build out the cultivation initiative, grow the store network aggressively, and then be positioned to start and locate and potentially start the construction of one superstore in that state to kick it off, which there's speculation that superstore could be in Miami. We'll see. That's just the word on the street, okay? Now, the company's in a much better cash position now at this point in time, right? If they can get back the rest of that money, which once again, that was supposedly embezzled, like let's write that off. But if they can get that back ever, that would be huge for the company's cash position as well. But it looks like the company's in a pretty good cash position now at this point in time. So here we are, right? Stock's gone nowhere over the last 11 months. But I think the stock has bottomed, in my opinion, because there's no raises needed in the short term. Maybe they raise, a year from now, 2 years from now, if conditions are much better in the market, right? But in the short term here with, they're talking about $33 million of cash, there's no need to raise here in the very short term, right? Especially if they get that, business comes back stronger, they continue that gross profit going up, that EBITDA starts turning around, the cash flow starts turning around, then we could really be talking, right? But no raises needed in the short term. I think revenue growth is going to start pouring in 2024, which is, I think, going to excite a lot of people that don't own this stock right now, but will be looking at this stock over the next 6 to 12 months once they see that revenue growth happening. Because, most people don't want to buy a company when the revenue is going down like it was for the last couple of years for this company. People like to buy it when the revenue is going and I think that's what's going to play out. We'll see where the numbers hit over this next 6 to 12 months, but I think we're going to see major revenue growth, and then everybody and their grandma is going to want to own this stock, right? And the other thing I feel the entire MJ space has hit rock bottom now at this point in time. And I think it's only gets better from here rather than worse. Now, the assets of the company, right? Then this is fascinating because we just went through that, the Vegas superstore, the small Vegas store, right? The wholesale business in Vegas, all the owned brands, which owns so many different brands this company owns, right? The Southern California superstore, the Illinois store, the Florida stores, and other Florida assets. This company has such a multitude of assets that it could turn into cash if it ever needed to, right? Or if it ever made sense, which it might not. But let's say the Illinois store, they're like, this isn't quite working. They could sell that off to somebody else, right? And they could brand it some other store or something like that. There's so many opportunities here. Let's say one of their brands, they're like, this brand's not worth it for us, but let's go ahead and sell this brand for $1 million, $2 million to somebody else. Then they could do that. There's so many potentials for the planet because they own so many assets now at this point in time. It's way more than just one big superstore like it was back prior to Rona. Now you're getting a multitude of assets all over the place, and those assets are worth money, right? Some of those assets are worth substantial amounts of money. Some of them not so much. Now, in terms of the company, right, there's, $160 million market cap roughly, right? And you think about all the assets you're getting for that price, and as a co-CEO Larry talks about, no debt on the company with $33 million of cash, right? And that's a pretty darn good position. If you've got that much cash, no debt, and you've got this many assets for $160 million in an industry that we know the demand is there. There's no debate if demand's there or not, right? We know the demand's there. It's always been there, right? It's just been happening illegally, and now it's moving to the legal market, right? So I look at this as a pretty interesting opportunity in terms of stock where I'm like, looks like the stocks, and also if you look at the 1 month, the stock has moved up 22% in the past month. I do believe overall the stock has bottomed, and the stock is going up and up and up here, and it won't be long before it'll be $1 or $2, especially once those revenues start pouring back in. I think that's going to get pretty darn exciting. Now, my view on this overall industry is I think there's going to be many companies with $1 billion plus valuations on them. Many companies. There's no question in my mind that it's going to be, where we're going to be 5-10 years from now. Many companies with $1 billion plus valuations. I think there's going to be some companies with $10 billion plus valuations in this industry long term. When I think about how insanely massive this market is, right? Who's better positioned than the planet out there? And I look at all these different companies and try to see who's the best positioned. And I've watched Canopy over the years, and I've watched Tilray and all these other companies come and go and, get themselves into bad positions. And, I like another company in this space called Avant, but I don't see anybody being in a better position than the planet. I don't see it. They are positioned the best of everybody. And so when I think about who's a type of company that has a chance to be the $1 billion company, right? Which $1 billion from here, that's over a 5x, right? Who has a chance to be a $5 billion, $10 billion plus company down the road? I don't see there being anybody better positioned than the planet, right? When you think about the superstore opportunity, smaller store opportunity, all the owned brands this company has, the wholesale business, I don't see anybody being better positioned than the planet. And they're creating, in my opinion, actually a moat around the business. It's a very, very early moat that they're creating around this business, but I think it's going to be very difficult to deal with these guys long term. Now, the other day, I just kind of had a little bit of an epiphany in regards to Planet. I was looking down at that store, busy, man. And I just looked at that store, and I was just kind of thinking for a moment there, and I was like, they made it through. They made it through the storm. They got faced with a max level hurricane of business going from horrible to great to horrible in a time period where the entire industry got decimated, right? In a time period when the Fed raised interest rates at the fastest clip we've ever seen in history in terms of how fast as a percent they were raising. We've never seen it that fast, and especially not in modern times. And then they had the SEC investment advisor, right, who registered investment advisor who embezzled money. I mean, you think about this company went through the freaking hurricane. You would talk about the Florida opportunity. They went through the biggest Florida hurricane that you could ever imagine. And they made it through to the other side. And so I just looked at this company and I was just thinking, like, they really did it. They really made it to the other side. And in my opinion, it's going to be a lot brighter skies ahead for this company over the coming years. And a lot of companies haven't made it through to that other side. We know there's a lot of companies that went under, especially in this industry. A lot of, the ones that weren't well capitalized, they went under. The Planet made it through. They really made it through, and I think they're going to get back to very impressive growth, where people are going to be like, oh my gosh, like Planet's doing it. Like they're really putting up insane growth again. And we know what can happen with a stock like this when it goes through one of those major growth cycles again, right? But the thing I think is going to be different in this next growth cycle Planet's going to go into is I think Bob and Larry will be even more conservative in terms of how they spend the money. So the next time we go through some sort of bust cycle in this industry, whether that be 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, 8 years from now, whenever that is, the next bust cycle, I believe Bob and Larry will have the company in even a better capital position going into that. And they'll be able to gobble up companies that, because you watched what just played out here in this last hurricane, right? You watched them gobble up companies and build into a bigger and bigger beast for this next growth cycle we're about to go into, in my opinion, over this next few years for this industry, right? And so in the next one, I believe they're going to cash up. I believe they're going to put themselves in a great position. I believe everybody will start to view the Planet as probably the best, or at least one of the best, most well-positioned companies in this entire industry. I believe it'll start to get more and more respect from actual like Wall Street type folks, right? And I think they'll be in that great position to just gobble up competitors if they want to gobble up competitors and just take more and more market share in the markets they have. And there's not really big brands that are really national brands yet in this space, right? Who's got the best opportunity to have national brands than the Planet? I can't think of anybody. When you think about their distribution, whenever things are federally legalized, that's going to be the biggest game changer for all these stocks, and especially the Planet. That's like a whole other wave of growth, but don't get too excited about that because don't count on the government to do things the right way. But we know if this industry, if we had a massive vote in the United States of America, if this product could be legalized or not legalized, we know how that vote's coming in. It's being legalized. If they put this in, if everybody had one vote on their smartphone, legalize this product or keep it illegal, there's no question in my mind this product would be legalized. More than 50% of the population would say legalize it, okay? And so I'm just like, whenever that day comes, that's a huge opportunity. But yeah, the timing's right. The timing's right. The timing is right. And we'll see how things shake out over the next few quarters, but I think they'll get back to growth. I think it's going to be major growth. And then I think they'll get back to comp store sales. I think the commentary in Vegas is going to get a lot more positive. I think the commentary with the Orange County store is going to get a lot more positive. Illinois is a wild card. We'll see. And then Florida, if that turns out to be that insane opportunity like management is talking about how big that market could be, then that's a whole other, that's blow the top off situation. And we know how fast the stock can react. We watched it go from less than $1 to $7. Quick. 14 months, right? And so, I'd rather, this is one of those that I get afraid could run away from me. I look at it and I'm like, okay, buy this stock for 60 cents, or let's just call it under $1, right? Am I afraid it's going to run away from me if I hold out? Yeah, I am. There's certain stocks, RH, for instance, like if that stock runs, I don't care. It's coming back to reality. A stock like the Planet, if that baby runs when it's at 60 cents, where's it going? $3, $5, $7? Like, there's a big difference between paying 60, 70 cents for a stock, right? And paying $3, $5, $7. So we'll see how it all plays out. It's, yeah, man, I'm excited about the stock for the first time in a long time. It's been years since I've been genuinely really excited about the stock and the opportunity I had. But I got to say, yeah, it's worth me saying I could have that $10,000 extra in a savings account, yielded me, 5%, 4.5%, whatever. Or I could have that $10,000 in the stock. And I think if I'm just judging off what's going to happen over this next few years, I think I'll be much happier with that $10,000 in the stock versus, sitting there in savings or something like that. So we'll see. We'll see, folks. Okay. Appreciate you joining me. Thanks so much for this one here today. A little bit of an in-depth video on the planet. Also, over 1,000 people are part of my Patreon. Why are you not part of my Patreon? If you want to be part of that, we got the deal of the century coming up. The one-day tax break sale, April 15th. Pin comment down there, enter your info. We'll send over that deal as soon as it drops. It's a 24-hour sale. Make sure you get ready for that. Much love and have a great day.